Well, hello there everyone, and welcome back to another video. And this is again another InZOI video. This is kind of like a follow-up to the last video I made, because the last video I made, there has been a lot of things that have that have happened with InZOI, things that have that I've learned about InZOI. And I say InZOI with a D just because it just falls off the tongue better. But there's a lot of things that I've learned, and there's a lot of things that have happened since the last time I posted a video, which was only a couple of days ago. That's just how fast things have moved. But I kind of wanted to discuss this and kind of like talk about this, because I'm sure there's some people that might not know about any of this stuff, or maybe you might know a little bit, maybe not, or just want to hear more about InZOI because you're still maybe kind of on the fence whether or not you want to buy it. I'm not here in this video to influence you whether or not to buy the game or not buy the game. I'm just kind of telling you what I've experienced with InZOI myself, and just some things from the developers and things that they've talked about in the past couple of days as well. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, if you didn't actually watch my last video, you can check out my last video. I'll leave the link in the pinned comment down below. And it's basically my fresh take of InZOI after 5 hours of gameplay. Now we have almost up to 10 hours of gameplay with InZOI, and a few things I've learned and a few things that I can kind of just talk about straight up about how I feel even more with more gameplay, if that makes any sense. But how am I feeling now that I've played the game more than 5 hours? Let's talk about that. Now, the first thing I will say is InZOI the Sims killer? And I can confidently say now, at the state of where InZOI is at the moment, no, InZOI is not the Sims killer. There's only one thing that out there that is the Sims killer. It's not the Sims, and it's not InZOI. The only thing that's going to kill the Sims is EA. That's the only Sims killer that we have out there. But I do believe InZOI is not a Sims killer. I think InZOI is definitely an alternative to the Sims, but I don't really believe it. Now, I don't believe it at all that it's the Sims killer. Now, immediately following the day after the game released on Friday, March 28th officially, the developer came out and talked about, which is actually really interesting. Developers don't really make statements after their game has released, and this is one thing about InZOI that I've really enjoyed. Yeah, the game might not be perfect, but one thing I have actually loved about InZOI is the developers and them being so transparent throughout the entire process. I'm not talking about right now. I'm not talking about yesterday, 2 days ago, last week. I'm talking about like months throughout the process. If you've been like, keeping up with them, and maybe some of you have, some of you haven't, but it's been kind of I always say, I've said it a lot of times now, but a fresh breath air. Yeah, a fresh breath. You know what I'm talking about. Minty fresh. It's something that we don't see with developers nowadays, especially in this kind of critical state where you have InZOI trying to take, trying to be part of the Sims genre, the simulation of life kind of take. There's no other game that does what the Sims does. You have games out there you can compare to, like Call of Duty, Battlefield. You can compare Valorant, Counter-Strike. You compare like, any battle royale to each other. There's a lot of similarities, and yes, they are trying to share the same market, which never has been done in the Sims. There's never been somebody that says, hey, can we share the Sims market? Because it just hasn't been done. So InZOI is that competitor, is that sharing of the market. However, with early access, and I know it's early access and there's a lot of potential and things like that, and that is very much true. There is a lot of development that definitely will happen here, and will happen here. There needs to be something to think about, though, is I think InZOI is a Sims competitor, and it does share the Sims world or Sims market, but it's just not. I don't think even 2 years, 3 years from now, it will be that Sims killer. I just don't see it happening, even with the amount of time that I played now with it. But the developer did come out the day after it was released, and we'll kind of talk about that. So this is a letter from the dev saying, "Hello, creators. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your overwhelmingly love and support you have shown towards InZOI. I am fully aware that due to the game's many shortcomings, some of you may have experienced crashes or found the available content lacking. I deeply apologize for any frustration this may have caused. So the developer comes out and says, hey, our game isn't working as, as we liked it to. It's not as optimized. It crashes. And honestly, our game has a lack of content, which is pretty big. I mean, the day after a game releases, maybe you would see a statement like that a week after, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month after, but this is the day after. And a developer coming out and saying that could definitely affect their own sales just by saying just that first paragraph. So, I mean, I do kind of tip my cap to that, and I'm glad they are taking accountability for that, and they are recognizing right away, not like down the line, but they're recognizing it right now that, yeah, the game is kind of broken, and the game has bugs, and, well, the game also just lacks content. And that's true. In my experience, I feel like the game, yeah, is lacking content, but, I also believe it's early access. Maybe there just isn't enough there yet. I do believe, though, like, early access games should not be a full-fledged game, yeah, but it should also have, something to keep us hooked, in a way, hooked. And I think just the gameplay is what is not going to keep us hooked. I did ask my community in chat, like, whether or not if people see themselves playing this for the next week, the next 2 weeks. And it was kind of split. It was a split. And some people were like, yeah, I could see myself, playing more, building more. And some people would say, well, I could probably see myself getting bored, right? So it is going to be interesting to see where this game is in about a week from now, 2 weeks time, to see where and how many people are still playing and if InZOI is still relevant or not. I'm sure it'll be relevant, but how many people are going to keep playing and still play, or if everyone's just going to wait for the first major update in May. Now, the developer does go on to say, when I watch the InZOI streams done by our talented content creators, I sometimes feel as anxious as a parent watching their child's first kindergarten performance. That is an interesting sentence right there, because they do say our talented content creators, which means some of these people were probably very carefully selected. And yes, they probably have some ties, of course, too, but I kind of just said, these are our talented content creators, and we are the parents, and these are our children playing our game. So I don't think children would backtalk their mom or dad, would they? Maybe they would, possibly. But anyways, they go on to say, yet seeing them have fun makes me feel like I've gained the entire world, because I wanted to incorporate as many of your valuable ideas as possible and attempt new experiments. I understand that the game might feel unstable and incomplete at times. And yeah, that's true. The game does feel unstable, and the game does feel incomplete at times. And some of those things go back to, in my last video, I talked about there not being a utility bill, which I did run into the utility bill. Yes. And it is a thing. But even just that little example of where the game, when you load into the game, it doesn't even like mention anything about trying to do a utility bill, unless maybe it's in the SciCat journal. The SciCat journal, I mean, that is an encyclopedia. There's just so much loaded information in there that you could read and read and read, probably for about 30 to 45 minutes, possibly. But, just simple tooltips. That's just a tiny little example of things that just are not complete. Unstable. There has been 2 hotfixes since the last time I talked to you in a video about this. They did do some hotfixes, and we'll talk about those hotfixes right now. So one of the major hotfixes has come out on Sunday, March 30th, and I'll be honest with you, I've never really actually seen anything like this before from any developer ever. But they're very specific on certain graphics cards. This kind of goes back to the whole thing, like where this game takes a lot of resources and a lot of power to run, right? And there's a lot of issues across the board with a lot of people, whether you have a really stocked up PC and it's not working, or you have a really low end PC and it's working fine. There's a lot of different variables happening here. So one of their hot fixes they wanted to kind of note was based on graphics drivers. So they go on to say, we'd also like to share the recommended graphic driver versions to help ensure a smoother gameplay experience, especially in response to recent issues reported in certain environments. If you are using a GeForce RTX series GPU, please check the following. So they want you, if you're depending on what series you have, they want you to be on a specific driver update, which is really interesting. Like I said, I've never seen anything like this before. So if you're on the 50 series, if you're on the RTX 50 series driver version, they want you to be on the latest driver version. If you are in the RTX 40 series, they want you to be on a driver version that dates back to December 2024. If you are on an RTX 30 series or earlier, they want you to be on the most latest driver, I guess, recommended. And under the 40 series, using driver versions 572.xx or later may result in occasional frame drops or stuttering. And I like to think that, I think maybe most of us that might be watching that have an higher NPC from the last, year or so probably have a 40 series or something equivalent. And most of us are probably also running on our most recent drivers. So in this case, they don't want you on your most recent driver. They want you on a previous release driver to at least kind of help on optimization and things like that, which is very interesting. They go on with the 30 series and they say if issues persist, we recommend installing 566.36. Which, if issues are happening on your RTX 30 series or your 20 series or your 10 series, they want you to go back to the December's driver update, December 2024 version to be able to run the game. I think it's safe to say that I don't think any of us are really going to go back in time and get older versions of drivers and kind of dedicate our PC directly to InZOI, unless that's what you bought a PC for, was directly just to dedicate it to InZOI. But I think the majority of people are probably not going to go back and just reinstall older drivers just to be able to play this game smoothly. So that does seem like a very big of a downfall for sure. And I'm sure they'll probably go ahead and fix these problems in the future. They go on to say, we will continue doing our best to ensure you can enjoy the experience in a more stable environment. Thank you as always for your continued interest and value feedback. So as the developer goes on, developer says, even so you continue to show warm support and encouragement in the community. I sincerely thank you for it. The InZOI team always keeps an eye on the message you send, and we are committed to working even harder to reciprocate your kindness. Although we may be lacking right now, we are determined to prove that this is just not another early access game that just takes advantage of it. We truly wish to communicate with you, build this game together, and remain dedicated to that promise. So it does seem like there has been that kind of like people must be chirping at InZOI saying, hey, you're gonna be like this X early access or this abandonware early access, which also kind of they mention, they say, hey, we're not gonna be another one of those, which means that they are at least have the knowledge of that actually happening in the gaming industry, at least in the indie gaming industry as is, where there is a lot of abandonware early access games and things like that. So they acknowledge that, they recognize that practice, and they are saying that they are determined to prove, which, I don't know if that would be like a promise or if you would take that as a promise, but they are determined to prove to you that this isn't an early access. So we'll see where that goes. I like to think that I have pretty good confidence in it because they do have Krafton backing them up, and Krafton is a massive community or massive publishing team anyways. They are massive publishers. They do games like PUBG. They do games like upcoming game like Dinkum Together and Dinkum. They now have the publishing rights for all the Dinkums. They also have publishing rights for Subnautica 2 that comes out soon. Yes, Krafton will be doing Subnautica 2. Terra, if anybody's ever heard of the game Terra, they have that as well. And the Callisto Protocol, they have those kinds of games. So they have quite a bit of games under their belts. They have quite a bit of money under their belt. So I'm sure they will be, funding InZOI. There has been times in the past where certain companies have funded early access games and then shut down projects. Will that be this case? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen, but I don't really see it happening. But if they did tomorrow say we're shutting down InZOI as a whole and just stop funding it, I wouldn't be surprised, but whatever. I guess I think a lot of people would kind of be like, haha, I told you so. But some people out there would be very disappointed as well. Not to mention Tencent is the company that owns Krafton, and we mostly know Tencent because Tencent owns almost everything when it comes to gaming. The developer then goes on and says, this project began as a small personal endeavor driven by my own enthusiasm, but with the support of Crafton and all of you, it has grown far beyond my initial expectations. While this growth is wonderful, I also feel a profound sense of responsibility that comes from your tremendous outpour and love and support. With your encouragement, I promise to keep expanding InZOI. At the moment, our team is a bit worn out from launch preparations, so we will be taking a short break to recharge. Once we are back with renewed energy, we plan to establish a dedicated channel on Discord where we can actively discuss and reflect on your feedback together. Our goal is to grow and evolve InZOI day by day and week by week, ensuring it becomes the best possible experience for everyone. Now, this is a very interesting part, and I've always, all the years I've been doing YouTube and gaming and all that, the one thing that I've always said was the release day is always important for your game. I think so. It's super important, not only for the day of release, but I think like a week or 2 weeks after release, because there's going to be a lot of feedback. There's going to be a lot of requests. There's going to be a lot of people coming to you, mentioning new problems or requesting these things. And there's a lot of, I would admit, there's kind of a lot of problems in InZOI right now. There is. And I think it's super important to kind of tackle those things like a day after, week after, 2 weeks after the release of the game. So what's very kind of like interesting here is they say they're going to go on a break, and I get it. We all need to take breaks for sure, but I think this is a very pivotal and this is a very important time. I don't know if they're going to take a break right now or if they're going to go on a break in a week, 2 weeks from now. But they have mentioned that they're going to go, the development team's going to go on a break and they're going to go and recharge their batteries. But like I said, I think this is a very important time to kind of tackle those things. It's time to do those hot fixes. It's time to do those optimizations. It's time to kind of rebalance or fixing, not rebalance the whole game as a whole, because that will take a very long time, but tweak a few things, right? And one of the big things that seems to be the problem right now is just, I think, inclusivity. I don't think there is really. I haven't discovered any of that. There's no inclusive stuff going on. And what I mean by that is just simple relations. Like, if you want to have same-sex relationships, I don't see that really and I haven't seen that in my experience. Maybe it's in the game, but I haven't experienced that, and everybody is just kind of like you can be with anybody. If I play as a guy and I am chasing after a girl, every girl that I've ever clicked on, and I've gone through like 30 or 40 Zois, all of them are eligible candidates, right? The only ones that are not eligible candidates are people that are a little bit too old. So I think like those things can be like wired in, hot fix. I think it can be fixed like in a week or two time, like right now as the game has released. I hope this isn't going to be a fix where they're like, hey, we'll fix that in our first update patch in May, because I feel like this is like, you got to strike while the iron's hot. People are going to get turned off from playing the game, and people are just not going to come back to the game, or they might come back to the game months and months and months from now, right? So I feel like it's a very important thing, and I'm not just saying that's the main issue. I'm just saying there's a lot of issues that can come from that. Right now, during my last stream, I encountered a wedding bug, and I know a wedding bug is going around. You can't just simply get married and schedule your wedding because there was a bug and you had to do it a certain way. You couldn't go onto your schedule event and schedule it. You had to like do a little bit of a workaround. So even just like that regular gameplay, I wasn't able to do. Eventually I was able to do it by doing a workaround, but even just those little things, like the bugs that can pop up, those things need to be squished like now, right? So hopefully their break does come, but hopefully it does not come like super quick. I'm just thinking like 2 weeks at least after the game's launch. I think this is prime time, right? We got to get the game going and get the gameplay flushed out, and we got to get some things tweaked here and there, possibly some balances over, tiny balances here and there, and then have a plan going in, right? But anyways, they go on to say, however, I also recognize that frequent updates can sometimes introduce unexpected issues. Therefore, we will prioritize stability in our internal reviews before implementing any new changes. Going forward, we will remain Ever grateful for your support. Strive to communicate more closely and continue improving. Above all, our aim to ensure that you can truly enjoy InZOI from the bottom of your heart. Once again, thank you all for so much of the overwhelmingly support. Yeah, so exactly that. That is a pretty nice statement, a pretty good statement. Probably one of the best statements I've ever seen from a developer a day after they ever released their game, especially for a game that, you know, they admit has problems. They admit it's lacking content, and the content's not there. The performance isn't there, and you know, that's just what it is. That's straight from them, right? There is no other way around that. So I don't know. In my personal experience, it has been fun. It has been fun in the first, I would say, first 10 hours or so. But it does then kind of like, there's a lot of things going on in the game. And I don't know, ever since these last two updates, because these two hotfixes, since the last two updates, my performance has been kind of going down. And I've seen that in other chats, or my chat, I should say. People have been chatting about where like the game was running fine, but now the game is not running so fine now. And if these little tiny hotfixes are going to be kind of causing issues here and there, imagine when these updates come out. I do imagine this game will, once they start getting like substantial updates, there will be a lot of broken stuff happening. This game will break things, or these updates will break the game, I believe. And I think it's going to be a long journey for InZOI. I really do. I think it's going to be a long journey for InZOI. Hopefully they can keep to it and stay with it, and, you know, and take care of all these problems. With these issues coming up and all this stuff, I think it probably will prolong the full release, and the full release not being as, you know, clear cut. You know, they probably know. They are kind of going into this and they're trying to figure out, you know, how are we? You can't really put a time frame on a game like this because there's so many moving pieces, right? There is so many moving pieces and moving parts and things like that. But there is an alternative called GeForce Now, and GeForce Now is technically an alternative in case you don't have a gaming rig that can, you know, run it smoothly. The only problem with GeForce Now is only available in certain countries. It's not available everywhere. It's blocked out in certain countries, blocked out in certain regions, and you also have to have a pretty decent connection to internet to be able to stream the game at 1080p. You're going to need at least like 30 megabytes down to go ahead and stream the game. And as far as latency goes, I'm not really sure. I'm not familiar with GeForce Now. I've never played any games off of GeForce Now. I have seen it. I know the UI is a bit clunky, but I have never actually streamed any games through GeForce Now. I don't know if there's any like latency issues that when you do stream the game. I'm sure there probably is. But yeah, I guess that is an alternative that the devs have mentioned. Now, in my experience here recently, I did get into like the whole utility part of the game, and you know, I got my utility bill at the end of the week, and it was only like $500, and it was kind of like, you know, $500. I mean, in real life, yes, yes, but like in the game, in the balancing, like you do 500 bucks for your utility, and then you know, I can be a theme park. Which I applied to be a theme park maintenance person, and you know, you make like $780 a day. You know, it's just back to the whole balancing thing. It's just not, the economy is just broken. I feel like the economy is broken. So, you know, there isn't that drive to like want to progress, or there's not that drive to want to like create or like build up your money. Because the way I like to play these games is, you know, you start out small, you start out with not a lot of money, and then you kind of build from there. And then, you know, and one recent series that I've done on my channel was when I played The Sims 2, when the Sims 2 Classic, or the, you know, that remaster anniversary edition came out. When we started Sims 2, we did just that. Started out small, and eventually got big and had a family and all that. And I think that's probably the majority of what people want to do when it comes to these games, is they want to like have that grind. You know, they want to do that, and it's just, I don't think it's like fully possible yet in InZOI. I get it, early access and all, but yeah, the economy is just one thing that's just kind of frustrating a bit, I think, on my end, just because like you're kind of sitting there and you're like, I got no real challenge now. What is there to do, you know? And the fact that, you could build a house and build everything you want and spend all your money, you could do that. But I think acquiring money and getting money is just maybe too easy, I think. I don't know. I've heard other people say it's really hard to make money, but I've also heard other people say it's very easy. In my experience, it's been very easy. So there is only a couple of jobs that you get to do hands-on. And what I did is I then switched over to a job where it had a little briefcase next to it. I was told that the jobs that have briefcases next to them, those are jobs that you don't actually do hands-on. Like you don't actually go and do the motions for, at least yet, or maybe ever. And so the one thing that I found a pretty big issue was I had a job and they said to get into the taxi cab to go to work. And so you get into the taxi cab and that's you at work. That's it. You just sit there. The taxi cab doesn't even drive off. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't go somewhere. It just sits in your driveway and you're sitting in the backseat of a taxi cab and that's you going to work. Now, one flaw that I've actually noticed, or at least accidentally came across, was I was sitting in the back of the taxi cab for literally 30 seconds. So like 30 in-game minutes. And what happened was, I canceled my job in the first 30 seconds and it gave me a full day's pay. So realistically, you could go to work for 9 a.m. and you could cancel your job at 9:02 a.m. and get paid for the full day. It doesn't give you progress on like your career progress. It doesn't really help you in that way. But I mean, if you just want to go to work for a couple minutes and get paid for a full day's work, that's technically a thing in this game, and they just haven't balanced that out yet either. I did go into and try to do the whole clothing option thing where, I wanted to buy clothing, and it's a very kind of like interesting thing. The thing about clothes in this game, and I believe, at least in my experience, I've only seen 5 different clothings that you can buy from a clothing store, which is a bit disappointing in a way. I understand that you can go to your wardrobe and you can change your style at any given time, but I think the fact that you can, I like to go and like, use the economy, use the game's economy, use the money that you've earned, go spend the money that you've earned and buy the clothes instead of just magically going to a dresser and getting any outfit you want. I think that is where the game is kind of lacking now, and maybe that stuff will change when early access comes, and I really hope so. When early access continues, not comes, when early access continues development, I really hope that that bit of the game does change, because I want to see, like I said, I want to see a catalog, I want to browse, I want to buy the shirts, and I want to put it in the dresser, and I want to wear it, right? I want to be able to use the economy. And that's where the game just falls short. The game's economy just falls short right now, and that's what it is. And the game's relationships also fall short, as it is right now. The relationships really fall short. I was able to do a woohoo in the game with a girlfriend, and the woohoo in the game just isn't that. I know it's weird to say, but it's not as exciting as it is in The Sims. All it is just a giant pink sensor, and that is it. And the weird thing about it is that the InZOIs, the Zois, they, for some reason, do the deed with their clothes on. So I was able to rock the bed with my Crocs on, and she was able to rock the bed with her Crocs on. And for some reason, I was able to do that action with noodles in my hand. So I had noodles in my hand and I had Crocs on, and we were doing, the woohooing. And so I think that whole thing is just not good. It's just not good. I think that also needs to be kind of reworked and all that. There's also a lot of times where I went out into the city and I went to a library, I went to a hotel and things like that, and there was just not anybody there, and it just took a while for the game to populate and have people show up. Now there's sliders where you can use medium, low, high, and all that for population to load in, but I was running on a medium population, and it took a while for these places to even like populate. So it'd be cool to see if like you went to a place, like you went to a library, you went to the hotel, if there was people already there, already preloaded into the game, into the lot. What do you want to say? Yeah, it'd be cool to see that. I then proposed and got engaged to my lovely person, and it went cool. There was a nice little letter that happened. He proposed. He got on his knee. He had Chinese food in his one hand and a ring in his other hand, and he proposed with Chinese food in his hand, and that was that. And then we decided to move in together, and we moved in together. And we moved into a new apartment. And again, just because of where the game is development wise, you can't buy a house you can't buy an apartment where it's empty and you can furnish it yourself, which I would really love to do. I would really love to just buy a prefab place, or like a place that's already built, and me furnish it. I would love that. Just not in the game yet. It's coming soon. Hopefully, maybe in the first update. We'll have to see in May. But they say it's coming soon. It's just not in the game yet. The one issue that came up as well is how scared your Zoi can get. Your Zoi can get scared and just stop everything they're doing at any given time, whether there's a fire or whether there is somebody kicking a vending machine and stuff. So, in my experience, the in-girlfriend in the game turned on the TV, and the TV just caught on fire. Just blew up, caught on fire, and my Zoi panicked and ran out of the house and left her in the house while the house was on fire. And then you couldn't like do anything. You couldn't walk. You couldn't do anything. Couldn't click on anything. They were just completely terrified, right? Which would have been cool if you could like, hey, take the other Zoi out of the fire, or maybe extinguish the fire yourself, or attempt to extinguish the fire. It doesn't seem to be a way to do that. So the fire department comes, and the fire department puts out the fire, and then you know, that's how that kind of goes on. Which kind of, you know, it'd be cool if you could risk your Zoi. I'm going to try to take out the fire myself, pull out a fire extinguisher and take care of it myself, and have that bit of risk for your Zoi. Kind of like how in The Sims, where like if you risk taking out a fire, you risk dying, right? Yeah, you risk dying. And so that just doesn't happen in this game. Your character just runs out of the house in panic, and then you wait for the fire department to show up, and they take care of it themselves. Which leads me back to another thing, where death. Yeah. Death in this game is, I believe, permanent, and once your Zoi dies, they die. And so with that, you have to think about age and age scaling. And I'm not 100% sure how age scaling actually works. Some people have said it takes 7 in-game days. Some people have said it's taken 9 in-game days and in-game days. I'm not entirely sure myself, but one thing about the age scaling is there's no way to stop it. You cannot stop age. It happens. There's no way to go back into time, or there's no way to get a youth potion, or there's no way to just click on a setting and say, I don't want to age, right? You have to age. That's just part of the game as of right now. And so if you really put your time and effort into a Zoi, you might not want to play them as they get older, because you really don't want them to die. So I think going back to the whole, you know, developers are taking time off for a break. I think just that simple little thing of where what they could do is just maybe go in real quick, adjust some of the same-sex stuff, you know, maybe rebalance that. What they could do is they could add a feature, maybe click no, you know, you could go into the settings and click no aging. You know, these are something that can be implemented in like a week or 2 weeks time after release, I believe. I mean, I would hope, right? I think those little things are like things that we could, it would be nice to see those kinds of updates. I don't know, we might not even get them until maybe later down the road, months down the road. But like those things, like those little things right after release, I feel like are pretty important, right? For sure. And not to kind of go back to the whole, you know, there's not like a lot of same-sex relationships. There's just not there. At least in my experience, there might be there, but I haven't seen anything. You know, it's just not, it's not a lot going on. You know, it's very samey. And the one thing that I find very confusing as well is everybody that is walking around, they all have no jobs. Everybody that just walks around the city have no jobs. And in my experience, anybody that I've talked to, you talk to them, they're like, I'm unemployed. I'm unemployed. I'm unemployed. And the only people that are employed are the people that you meet at their job site. which seems to look like they are there 24/7 and they never walk away, whether it's somebody at a hot dog cart or the bartender at the hotel. These are people that are there all the time, every day, all day. That's the only people that are employed. Everybody else walking around, everybody's unemployed. That just doesn't, there's something about that it's just not good gameplay, I don't think, because it's not realistic to the people walking around all day. Like, somebody has a job, right? Somebody has to have a job. So that could be kind of like rebalanced, refocused, just a quick thing to kind of change. I can't imagine that would take a lot of time. These are just a few things that could obviously be changed. So where I see InZOI at a very strong suit right now is I really, really think InZOI excels pretty well at the building, at the customization, creating your character, making a build, whether it's a house or your character, very, very customizable to your liking. I think that's where InZOI is very strong at. I think the customization, I think the options that you have for building a house, for building your character, it does a really good job at that. I really do. As far as gameplay goes, as far as like, you want to kind of like start a life, start a family, I think the life side, the life simulation of InZOI is extremely lacking at the moment. And I do hope that with these updates coming out in the future, it does kind of fix all that. But I also definitely see this game coming to breaking points, as in, like, when they do these updates, the game will break, your save file will break, your characters will get deleted, or your houses will break, something will break, and I can see it a mile away now. And I just don't see it being a smooth process through every major update. You probably will have to start over quite a bit through its early access development. But I do hope InZOI does become really, really good when it does come out of when it does come out to full release. Because then by then, I do believe the game will come out on consoles, whether it's PlayStation 6 by that time or whatever it might be. Who knows? But I do still stand on the fact that the game, I think, is good if you are really into simulation games. I know the simulation part of it's really lacking. At least if you're really into like the Sims, I think it still stands where it's like, you really like the Sims, you might enjoy this. And if you're really into the Sims and you're looking for an alternative, if you really enjoy the Sims and you're not looking for an alternative, or you really could care less, trust me, the Sims are going to be, Sims will always be there, right? But if you're like a long-time Sims person and you're trying to look into an alternative, I think this will be still a safe buy for you. Like I said, for the casual players, this isn't going to be the best thing, at least at its state right now. Not the best thing for the casual sim players or simulation players. And if you, like I said, if you don't have the hardware to run it, you might have a lot of issues. I know in my chat, there's been a lot of people that have been saying I had to refund the game because it just didn't run well enough. Or people have been using their spouses or partners' computers because their computer can't run it, but their partners can. So yeah, I think it needs to bake in the oven a little bit more. And there's a lot of information that I just kind of like spilled up on you. And hopefully this is a nice little video to kind of like follow up on to our previous video that we had with InZOI. One thing I absolutely love about InZOI is the developers. I don't know if I absolutely love them, but I really love the fact that they're being completely transparent. They've been transparent through this whole process. Whether it was a week before the game came out, they did not avoid questions. They took questions head on. They were honest, even if even if the answers didn't even make sense, or even if the answers were very bad. They still said it, and they still came out and said, this is it, right? This is where we're at. So you have to at least kind of like think, okay, well, thanks. And especially with this statement the day after the game released, they know the game is broken. They know the game lacks content. That's pretty ballsy the day after your game releases, because that definitely can affect sales. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this video up to this point. If you made it up to this point, I tip my cap to you because I don't have a cap on, but I tip my something to you because this has been a long one. And you obviously are interested in what I have to say about InZOI and all that good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one. Take care.